presenter tonight is Dr. Cleopatra Knight-Wilkins. Dr. Knight-Wilkins is an occupational therapist. She is an award-winning educator and performing artist with over 40 years of urban education experience. Dr. Knight-Wilkins is a post-professional doctorate of occupational therapy at Quinnipiac University. Quinnipiac University graduate, Her credentials include Master's of Special Ed degree from Northeastern University and a Music Educational Certificate of Advanced Graduate Studies from Coley Center of America. And she earned her Bachelor's of Science degree in OT from Boston University. Along with NVCOT's registration, Dr. Knight-Wilkins has a Massachusetts licensure in occupational therapy, special education teacher, middle school science teacher, musical education teacher, and K-8 school principal. She was also an adjunct professor at the Lesley University Creative Arts and Learning graduate program. Currently, Cleopatra is in the process of publishing her research-based multimedia curriculum resource guide entitled Rhythm of the Words, Integrating Multicultural Songs and Games with Occupational Therapy to Improve Literacy. And with that, I will pass this webinar over to Dr. Knight-Wilkins. Here we go.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I don't know where you all are, but I'm in Massachusetts and it's very rainy, but it's a beautiful day to be in and getting some new knowledge. I am so excited that you've chosen to spend some time learning about rhythm of the words and how to integrate multicultural folk songs and games with your practice as an occupational therapist. And I know that some of you may not necessarily be OTs. This is information that's relevant to speech language pathologists, teachers, parents, and maybe we'll take a moment right now to just get a sense of who's actually with us today. If you could just respond to what your role is. I think Alice is going to launch a question that asks you that.
So far, it looks like we have a lot of OTs in the house. We have 90% of you responding as occupational therapist and 5% responding as parents. I am going to close out the poll. So if any last minute responses, now is your time. 3, 2, 1. All right, so yeah, a lot of OTs in the house tonight.
Yay, OTs. You know, OTs are going to change the world. We're already doing it. It's a wonderful profession. I've been doing it for my adult career. I've done a lot of other things in addition to it, but my root and my foundation has always been the occupational therapy training that I've received. I am going to go through a bunch of slides, and I have always way more information than we can cover. This webinar is actually a part of a larger professional development pathway. And so here we can only cover kind of an awareness level of that pathway, but it is an experience that's grounded in the power of oral tradition and timing and creative expression that's been integrated with my foundation as an occupational therapist. It's founded on decades of research that shows that when we are engaged with the inherent healing elements of music, that develops a child in holistic ways. We're going to focus on children in this webinar, however, and in this work. However, this work, of course, applies to kind of a womb to tomb developmental human view. It's designed to help pediatric occupational therapists use authentic childhood music literature. And it highlights the distinction that we bring as OTs to our professions, especially when we're working in school settings, because when we talk about literacy, we're talking about really engagement in the occupations of literacy. And here we're going to focus on the movement elements and the music and how we can use all of that research to inspire motivation and habituation towards listening, speaking, and reading and writing. So our learning goals will be that at the conclusion of this webinar, you'll be able to kind of at least articulate the OT's role in literacy accountability, access some professional development learning tools, as we mentioned earlier, as to why and how and when you can integrate multicultural songs and games and movements with what you're already doing as a OT-centered practitioner. And you'll also begin to understand why and how children's musical play supports the development of all those sensory motor integration in underpinnings in language and cognition as well. And it will give you an opportunity to begin to really integrate musical elements in an organized fashion if you want to use some of these as tools to do that, some of this information and resources. So at this point, I'm going to just ask a question as I switch slides. I'm wondering how many of you actually attended the Occupational Therapy National Convention in New Orleans? I did. I was actually a poster presenter, and I'm going to share my poster with you, but I'd like to, I'm going to switch screens as you respond to that question.
All right, so let's check out our poll results. It looks like we have 13% who went to AOTA this year and 88% who did not.
Not bad, but it's good that we have 13%, and I'm sure the 88% were very on top of what was going on at the conference. I'm going to be talking a little bit about our national organization throughout this conversation, just because it's such a strong resource and they really do guide our work as practitioners. My poster presentation really summarized the work I did in my doctoral program around looking at how occupational therapists already use sound-based interventions in combination with sensory integration and developmental sequence and play theory. I took all that information and also looked across disciplines in the areas of neuroscience and music and reading research. And I found a lot of intersections and a lot of diverse theories that really show how there's a very strong relationship between childhood music making, language and literacy development, and movement. The occupational therapy approach to reading is one approach that's sort of current in our professional research that emphasizes how language-based and multisensory literacy interventions consider children's behaviors and motivation, interests, and the impact of reading on meaningful living. And here is really the heartbeat of what we do as occupation-centered professionals. So my guiding question with my research grew into when almost 25% of occupational therapists already working in school settings or in early interventions. And as I've mentioned, we've been well advised by our national organization, AOTA, to support literacy for all learners. I realized that an evidence-based multimedia curriculum manual to help OT practitioners combine music, language, and play with literacy interventions was necessary, and so I went ahead and created one for you. So I want to tell you just a little bit about my project. It'll be very quick because we don't have a lot of time. But essentially, I took my research and created a conceptual framework. I looked into what would be the best way to share professional development across not just a school district, but across a nation and even internationally. There's a lot of work happening in the whole creative realm of occupational therapy. And I went about the task of producing a research by putting together a team of a family practice, people that I knew from my early intervention practice. So I gathered some families who had children, and they agreed to come to a studio, a real television studio, a community access network. And through that partnership, we spent 3 Saturdays actually in February, just singing and playing, but in a studio where I was teaching the songs and games, and the children and families and aunties were learning them. And it was a fun time, but it was also a way that I know when you are not necessarily exposed to music and movement in organized ways, it's kind of hard to learn these on your own motivation. So this is designed as a tool to help keep the folklore and the children's literature alive. So in a nutshell, we ended up with a curriculum manual, and it's in a very, very solid format right now, pretty much ready to be published. It features evidence, the evidence base that I described. It's self-paced for adult learners. It's interactive, and it's also developmentally or child-centered. It includes a lot of multi-sensory music and language literacy activities that build that connection for you to learn from as practitioners, so you can then integrate that in with your daily practices. Right now, there are 6 modules. This will probably grow. They're developmentally sequenced. Each module has specific learning goals for the age group that it's geared towards. And with the lessons, there are embedded video lessons, and we're going to look at those in a bit. But they also include an observation guide as you're looking at the lesson, so you can learn the materials and also how you can plan to include those in your work. So really quickly, I've gone through sort of, this is my poster presentation where I shared my work at the conference, had many people come by and listen and receive the information. Here are a collection of singing games and circle games. There's a focus on the elements of music, beat, rhythm, melody, harmony. There are different musical formations, not just circle games, but hand clapping games, and also some line movement formations. So everything is organized developmentally and also by movement, so that practitioners can easily access where they want to go with their instruction and with their integrating and using these materials. In conclusion, I learned a lot from doing this work, and I'm actually going to skip through some of the themes and findings. I've already mentioned about our distinct addition to school settings. This was a really broad scope endeavor, and I knew I wouldn't be finished with it in 1 year. And so I'm now at that place of looking at what does it really mean for our profession, and how can we embolden our roles as school-based practitioners, especially in the realm of literacy, because the achievement gap is a real existence and a real phenomenon that needs to be eliminated. And for future directions, this is where I'm at, really, is looking for expert reviewers and with expanding the partnerships and sharing the information. So we're going to switch back now to the regular slides. And as we're doing that switch, Allison's going to ask you to just think a little bit about what you already know about how to use music, movement, and language.
All right, let's close out this poll and check out the responses. We have 34% who know nothing at all about this topic, 59% saying just a little bit, and 7% saying they are well versed.
Oh, that's exciting. Okay. So we are in a really good place with what we usually get across a group of people, which is a wide array of knowledge. And, you know, we all learn together and help each other grow through the process. So we're going to start off talking about accountability, not necessarily musical or literacy related, but I'm sure you'll begin to get the connection if you don't already have it. Every Student Success Act is really an opportunity for us as OTs and educators to work more collaboratively in driving the teaching and learning that benefits all students. It's really designed to strengthen partnerships among parents and communities to advocate for what students really need, and for working together to promote federal policies at the federal, state, and also the local level. When you think about your current practice, Every Student Success Act really became implemented in most states between 2016, late 2016, more so though in the academic 2017-2018 year. So hopefully it's well underway in school districts, and you're aware of the changes that have occurred from the No Child Left Behind Act, where we were known as related service providers with a rather unclear role. The ESAW Act gives us a much more specialized instructional support personnel role that's mandated to be involved in assessment and policy decision making. The adequate yearly progress accountability system has been eliminated, and that is now put more on states to individually decide how they're going to measure accountability. And one of the restrictions with adequate yearly progress was that it was really restricted to standardized testing, which we know is not a real accurate measure of a student's functional ability or their ability to really utilize information, or it doesn't show how they grow from their own individual level. And also, in No Child Left Behind mandated a certain type of educator evaluation that was based on student achievement. Well, those things have been changed here in the new legislation, whereby the accountability measures are more results driven, and schools have selected how they're going to make those determinations around growth. And the federal evaluation for educators has been eliminated, and it's really more now of an interdisciplinary collaborative mandate. So that includes us, OTs, and parents as well. So why did I select literacy? Essentially because literacy is the language, and it really determines success in not only school performance, but also in life in general. I really appreciate this definition from the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization that defines literacy. I won't read it verbatim because you have this in your handouts, but it's really the ability to identify and compute and create and communicate, and it involves a whole continuum of learning, not just reading and writing, but literacy. I like to make it plural. It really refers to being able to, in a language sense, listen, speak, read, and write. And in the United States, we're referring to the English language. But it also includes the mathematics and science and the arts. There's a literacy in music. There's a literacy in dance or in movement that is also very important. The Occupational Therapy National Association stance on literacy is based on a longitudinal study of 4,000 students that indicated really clearly that when kids aren't ready, aren't reading proficiently by 3rd grade, they're 4 times more likely to leave school without a diploma. And there's so much data that goes back over 50 years that shows that even by 3rd grade, beyond being successful in school, these indicators sort of show success in life and in community overall. And, you know, sad to say, there's even what we call a school to prison pipeline. There's lots of research that pulls out the importance of being able to be proficient as a literate person and a mathematician. So most states, I mentioned earlier in the other slide, that states were going to be able to choose how they measure their growth in their schools. So most states have selected literacy and math as their what's called a state measurable result. And it involves supporting individual students and groups, providing those adaptations that's necessary, and building early literacy skills. So you can see how this really applies to OTs in particular, and speech language pathologists, that we are no longer on the sidelines, but we're actually mandated to be a part of the decision making and to make sure that our interventions directly impact literacy. We want to eliminate this achievement gap. It's been just so domineering and in existence for the last 50 years, just according to the research. I've pulled some things from our AOT website around how to use the access. They have wonderful resources there for us to use, resources around the importance of play, the importance of movement, how to integrate your work into classrooms. And also, I mentioned earlier the occupational performance approach, another great source for information on literacy. My approach is a little bit different. I'm using the actual children's literature of music and movement and play because it is so multicultural, and it does touch on all aspects of life. And if you're like me and you work in an urban setting, you deal with many cultures. And even if you don't work in an urban setting, we all live together in this world. And music and movement and our folklore are one of our universal commonalities that we have. And so I'm just encouraging you to think of this as a beginning, or use these resources wherever you are in this work. Join your school leadership teams, participate in communities of practice. As we know, play is a primary occupation of childhood, again, from our AOTA national organization. I'm wondering, one of the questions I'm going to ask you is how many of you are familiar with the website and are you using it? But more importantly, are you familiar with the stance on literacy that we have been provided as practitioners? So the research says that movement and music improve literacy development, and that research is very true. We're going to, if we were face-to-face and this were a live seminar, we would actually engage in about 45 minutes of play, songs, and games. And this is how, this is the best way to learn and the best way for me to teach and share these powerful materials. But because of the way this is structured, and we're going to actually visit and view one, hopefully two videos that are video lessons that are embedded in the curriculum. So as I pull up our first video for viewing, I'm going to, Allison's going to launch another poll with a question. And also, when we come back, the video will be playing. And as you observe, I just want you to look at it and see what questions come to mind about the lesson that you'll see.
Okay, so for the poll, we have 0% who say they are very familiar, 47% that are saying they are somewhat familiar, and 53% that say they are not familiar at all.
Well. So we better get more familiar, because it's a very, very important obligation and expectation for those of us who support teaching and learning in the schools, providing modifications and adaptations and interventions for students. So I'm going to share with you this video. I'm going to just ask you to listen and watch, and then we'll come back and see. Hopefully you'll have some questions for me. This is Head and Shoulders Baby. It's a hand clapping game. Okay, so I'm asking them, how many times did I sing Head and Shoulders Baby? And I'm getting all different answers. And so that gives me an opportunity to sing it and play it again. Head and shoulders, baby, 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, baby, 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, head and shoulders, head and shoulders, baby, 1, 2, 3. So I'm asking them, I'm focusing their listening, and I'm asking them again, how many? I still hear different answers. I heard the right answer 2 times, and that young lady stuck by her answer. Now I'm focusing them on the music and the rhythm that they heard. I'm asking them now, which word did I clap on? That's to help focus their movement. So when they start singing and playing with their partner, they're already ready to do it and do a good job. Baby, 1, 2, 3, head and shoulders, baby, 1, 2, 3, head and shoulders, head and shoulders, head and shoulders, baby, 1, 2, 3. Which word did I clap on? She said 2 and 3. She got it. She said baby, baby. And head and shoulders, baby. So you're focusing their movement, they're listening, they're hearing. Head and shoulders, baby. 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, baby. 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, head and shoulders, head and shoulders, baby. 1, 2, 3. So you have them do it by themselves first before they work with their partner. You want to organize your partnerships. In this group, these were families, and brothers wanted to be with brothers, and sisters wanted to be with sisters. And we had to do a little negotiating. We worked that out. And you'll notice the youngest child is 4, and he's going to step out because that's what young children always do that. They always need more time. They need to break. Getting everyone's attention to face their partner. So I'm going to sing the song. We only did one part. They're greeting their partners, agreeing to work together and to be kind to each other. We were working on the word patient earlier, so we just pulled that up again. I'll sing while we play this. Here we go. Head and shoulders, baby. 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, baby. 1, 2, 3. Head and shoulders, head and shoulders, head and shoulders, baby. 1, 2, 3. Knee and ankle, baby. 1, 2, 3. Knee and ankle, baby. 1, 2, 3. Knee and ankle, knee and ankle, knee and ankle, baby. 1, 2, 3. Milk the cow, baby. 1, 2, 3. Milk the cow, baby. 1, 2, 3. Milk the cow, milk the cow, milk the cow, baby. 1, 2, 3. Throw the ball, baby. 1, 2, 3. Throw the ball, baby. 1, 2, 3. Throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball, baby. 1, 2, 3. Keep clapping. I've never been to college. I've never been to school, but you can bet your bottom dollar I ain't no fool. To the front, to the back, the side, side, side. To the front, the back, the side, side, side. So we're going to practice that part. The back, side, side, side. The front, the back, the side, side, side. We're going to do the whole thing together, thanking your partner for doing a great job. And the 4-year-old is sitting out, but he's also participating, if you can see him in the background. Baby, 1, 2, 3, head and shoulders, baby. 1, 2, 3, head and shoulders, head and shoulders, head and shoulders, baby. 1, 2, 3, knee and ankle, baby. 1, 2, 3, knee and ankle, baby. 1, 2, 3, knee and ankle, knee and ankle, knee and ankle, baby. 1, 2, 3, milk the cow, baby. 1, 2, 3, milk the cow, baby. 1, 2, 3, milk the cow, milk the cow, milk the cow, baby. 1, 2, 3, baby. 1, 2, 3, throw the ball, baby. 1, 2, 3, throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball, baby. 1, 2, 3. I've never been to clap right, clap left. I've never been to college. I've never been to school, but you can bet your bottom dollar I ain't no fool. To the front, to the back, to the side, 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 to the front, to the back, to the side, 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 to the front, the back, the side, side, side. Pat yourselves on the back.
So it looks like we have 3% doing the instructional leadership team, 3% literacy math curriculum team, 31% doing student support team, 3% doing the common planning team, and 59% saying either other or none. And if you're participating in other, you're welcome to type in what that is in the comment box, and we can give that feedback on over to Cleo when we're done with the video.
Well, thank you. I'm so thrilled to hear that so many of you are participating in your school teams. That's excellent. I will just set this video up for you a little bit. It's a circle still position for the group. That means the circle's not going to be moving, but in children's play, we call the child would be moving on the outside of the circle. I'll just talk you through it and you can watch. Enjoy. Round the zero, find your love in zero. Back, back, zero. Side, side, zero. Front, front, zero. Now tap your love in zero. Circle round the zero. Find your love in zero. Back, back, zero. Side, side, zero. Front, front, zero. Now tap your love in zero. Circle round the zero. Find your love in zero. Back, back, zero. Side, side, zero. Front, front, zero. Now tap your love in zero. Circle around the zero. Find your love in zero. Back, back, zero. Side, side, zero. I had said last time for this one, but the faces, the little one really wanted a turn. So she wanted a turn. We're going to go one more time. Here's my skipper. Find your love in zero. Back, back, zero. Side, side, zero. Front, front, zero. Now tap your love in zero. Circle around the zero. Find your love in zero. Back, back, zero. Side, side, zero. Front, front, zero. Tap your love in zero. You want to turn? Yes. Round the zero. Find your round the zero. Find your love in zero. Back, back, zero. Back, back, zero. Back, back, zero. Back, back, zero. Side, side, zero. Front, front, zero. He was looking for his brother. All the way around the zero. Ain't got no love for zero. I want to marry zero. Now back, back, zero. Side, side, zero. Front, front, zero. Now tap your love in zero. Circle around the zero. Find your love in zero. Back, back, zero. Side, side, zero. Front, front, zero. Now tap your love in zero. Oops, he tapped a little bit too hard. And we stopped right there. Okay, we're going to switch back to our slides.
And while we're switching back, I just have a few kind of responses to that last poll question. So it looks like we have someone who's participating in the school-wide self-regulation study team. And someone who is participating in a racial bias study group. And then we have a mom that's looking for some ideas for things to help her daughter during the summer. So we have a bunch of different things going on.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, these activities are great for self-regulation and any kind of summer activities that involve the arts, music, movement are always great to find if you can find them in your community. A lot of if you're in Massachusetts, there are lots of offerings, especially through the conservatory and so forth. So I'm going to keep moving on. Before I go into the other slides, I do, if you have any questions or things that are rolling through your mind that you want to ask, I guess, Allison, are there ways for them to type that in? And I'm going to just talk through some of the other slides that talk about the methodology that I'm using.
Absolutely. As you have questions, just type them in your question box. And as we come to pauses in your presentation, Cleo, I will kind of give you those questions that have rolled in.
Thank you. So as I said, we're looking at a pathway for professional development really designed for adult learners to understand how to access the rich repertoire of children's folklore, songs and games, movement, playground activities, hand clapping activities. And the initial part of the guide really just talks about how to use it. It gives you some real pointers around clarity, that you're giving yourself a gift by doing this work, and that you will need to set aside some time for practice, or even just think about songs that you already know from your childhood that you want to share and why. And from the curriculum, you'll be able to learn the songs and then combine them with your daily practices. And again, I'm encouraging you to join a community of practice around collaboration. Many of you are already collaborating around various things in school settings. And believe me, literacy and movement are always integral to that work. So why should we use authentic children's lore? Because the research tells us to, because it's fun, because it works. It really helps you accomplish a lot with relationship building, with social emotional learning. It's just endless. It's a very holistic approach, and it's a very critical piece of skill to have and skill set to have in your work, especially if you're a school-based practitioner or even if you're a parent. So what does the research say? A lot. There's so much research. I had the hardest time sort of whittling it down. Here's one of my favorite research studies. I'm running out of time, so I feel myself talking fast. I won't get through nearly half this work, but I do want you to know that children who are more skillful at performing hand clapping songs and games were more efficient first graders, according to the research. Second graders, who were spontaneously engaged in hand clapping games, were advantaged in bimanual coupling patterns, verbal memory, and handwriting. We know how we love handwriting. Handwriting is beyond, though. It should be really writing with the language piece involved with it. Classroom hand clapping song training was more efficient than music appreciation classes in developing literacy skills among second and third graders. So should OTs and other practitioners explicitly use playground hand clapping games as an interactive intervention for literacy? That's my question to you. Thank you for coming here and listening, because you must believe that to be true. I studied a methodology called Kodai. It's a philosophy of education. Kodai is a very prominent musician who studied his folk music in Hungary when his country was taken over by the Germans. And what he found is that we all have a rich collection of folk music that has really the same elements. It's truly the universal language, and that those language-based concepts can teach us the structure of music, just as we learn the structure of our spoken language. Usually it's our mother tongue that we hear when we're in the womb. Music is really our universal tongue for all of us. I have here some specific alignments between OT and the Kodai approach. I'm not going to go through them all because you have this in your handouts, but essentially the message is that multicultural folk songs and games form the core literature for the Kodai music instruction. And you can tap into that wealth of resource. It's already been sequenced developmentally so that as we teach and grow together, you'll know which games to pick. You wouldn't use Head and Shoulders Baby with 2-year-olds. It's things like that that are developmentally important. The literacy objectives for OT practitioners are very similar to what our literacy objectives would be in our own work. The one thing that I'll highlight here is that we tend to, in addition to bringing the sensory motor underpinnings, We also bring a very, very skillful set of helping kids to be motivated and to build good habits around reading and writing. Because as you know, if kids aren't motivated, if they're not interested, they're not going to practice, they're not going to engage in that natural play that really builds those skill sets. So understanding the musical literacy pedagogy will help you do that better, because you'll understand the concepts of beat and rhythm and those developmental sequences. Melody has a developmental sequence, and how once you build upon that foundation, you open the door for improvisation and harmonization, for increased memory and increased language. There are a lot of different tools that you can learn easily to integrate with your work. Some of the most important tools is that Kodai uses the singing voice, and most kids can access a singing voice. And we teach that you use your singing voices as you use your oral language voice first, and then you can transfer that into other instruments. And it also opens up much opportunity for interacting and interplay. I've already talked about folk music as a universal element, and it uses movement. It uses the 5-note scale initially with very young children. One of the commonalities in folk music around the world is that children's music somehow is just automatically based on that pentatonic scale, where there are natural harmonies. You don't insert those 2 half steps that you hear on the typical 8-note scale, 7-note scale, because children hear that later, and you start hearing that accurately around 2nd and 3rd grade. So again, following a very, very clear, researched, and sequential instructional approach. And also really paying attention to the cultural mother tongue that children bring to the classroom. And what I find, I've taught in many multilingual classroom settings where the songs, they may be different, but everybody plays circle games, everybody plays hand clapping games, everybody plays passing games. The melodies are different, the words may be different, but the themes and the purpose are pretty much the same. I won't have time to go through all of the various tools because I do want to have some time for interacting with you. So I'm skipping forward. I had built in some information around beat and rhythm because that's where you really start. And this is a great starting place for us as practitioners who really focus on sensory integration and perceptual motor skills. As you're doing that, build to get upon a 4-note count, a 4-beat count, and then a 2-beat count. Kids pretty much hear that 4-beat initially, so make sure your kids can walk the beat, that they understand the difference between a beat pattern and how the beat is constant. It's like your heartbeat, and that the rhythm is more like the words of a song. So if you're doing engine number 9, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it may change. The rhythm will change, going down Chicago line, but the beat will remain constant throughout that rhyme. So this is what we do in our work, is just really build the children's repertoire in a developmental way. And then once they acquire that repertoire, we pull out various elements that align with what their goals might be around crossing midline or directionality or body image. Another tool that is also very useful is that the Kodai methodology puts melody. The melody, the intervals of music are like the ABCs of spoken word. So when you hear those intervals, you're really hearing the spaces in between the sounds. And children tend to hear them more naturally when you teach them that way. Adults can learn this very easily. No one needs to feel like music is this great mystery that you can't be further trained in. And this visual is really showing you the scale. I'm going to sing it for you. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Not very well in tune, but you get the idea that that's the regular diatonic scale, whereas the children's scale does not include those half steps. So I'm not going to have time to talk through some of the comparisons around language and music and how they all work together. This slide really gives a good visual of how we as OTs often bring in that sensory integration information into the classroom and into helping teachers understand how to build upon that into more music, language, and higher order thinking skills. I'm going to stop here. My intention was to actually share a story with you called The Wolf and Little Daughter. I won't have time for that, but the story integrates music nicely into this folk story. And again, every culture has stories about, thematically, about animals and wolves, and this is just a really good example of this. You have these in your handout as resources that you can look for. A lot of artists and musicians have taken like a Tisket a Tasket, which is a very famous, well-known children's game. This then became a very famous song by Ella Fitzgerald. And again, just ways to integrate music through either songs that have been put into books, or there's a wonderful biography about Ella that's a children's book. Here's another one that's very rhythmical. You have these resources. I hope you'll be able to use them. I've tried to include some links where you can click on and get further information. And this is another great story, folk song that's been put into a book. And then there are some other resources where you can listen to the song, learn the song. And essentially that's what Rhythm of the Words is all about. It's packed with resources, but it's designed for you to take a personal look at where you are, where you want to enter in, and how you can use the materials. If you want to start with recalling some of the things you did as a child, what you're already doing in your work with hand clapping games and circle games, and then how that can be useful in your daily practice. I'm going to stop here and see if there are any questions or comments.
So we have one question from Deborah. She asked, do you have advice as how to justify this to administration that may not see music as an appropriate method for OTs in the school?
I've done that a lot in my life. The best way is to demonstrate and to help them experience the correlation between movement and reading and writing and music and language. I've done it by giving workshops. You can open up with a parents workshop on playground activities, and that's always a good segue. At AOTA, there's a wonderful flyer and information packet that guides OTs into how to talk about the importance of play. And that's the best way to start, I think, is to really help administrators understand that children need to move and they need to engage in order to learn. They are not sit and get individuals. And actually that's true for adults as well. But I would say, thinking about your setting, of course I don't know what your whole circumstance is, but one of the best ways is to try and do something that will impact your whole school. Another thing I've done is to use songs and games with individual children, and then go back with those children and have them, be the leaders for a change and teach it to the whole class. So once administrators see the impact, they can begin to come along. And I'd share some of the research with them about, there's just lots of research about how music and reading and movement are connected. And we as OTs, that's what we do.
All right, well, thank you, Dr. Knight-Wilkins, for your wonderful presentation, and thank you for everybody for joining tonight's webinar. You'll be receiving an email shortly. In that email, you'll find some information on our next webinar, how you can access a recording of tonight's webinar, There will also be some contact information in there for Dr. Knight-Wilkins if you are interested in participating in research surveys or her expert review process as she goes through with her project here. Don't forget to download your certificate of attendance and handouts before exiting out of the webinar. They won't be available after that. And I look forward to seeing you at our next webinar on June 18th. Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much. Good night, everyone. Thank you.